Coming up next on The Mikey Martin Show.
When our phone is about to die, we don't question if it deserves a charge, right?
Right.
Whereas for us, we're like, no, I don't need to be able to sleep, or I don't need to be able to drink water. I can be able to do it without it. I'm a beast, right? Well, the biggest thing is I had to be able to figure out my why behind it. You may be going through that same struggle again, or those same sort of feelings, but you're not the same person the last time you fought those feelings, right? You're a stronger, better version of yourself. But my number one focus has always just been significance. And I think too many times people don't identify what their values are, what their most important things are, what their non-negotiables are.
It's personal.
And so if I wanted to be able to make an impact on other people, I had to first save myself.
Guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have a special guest. His name's Nivah Greening. Neva is a really successful guy. He's been in the tech industry now for several years. He works with customer success, making sure they keep their big clients nice and happy. Neva is married with a 6-month-old, super successful guy. So happy to have him on here today. He's got some really good and unique views on recovery. Happy to have you, Neva. Welcome to the show.
Hey, grateful, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No, guys, and if you guys if other people out there have a podcast, you got to get this guy on there because he brings a lot of value to the channel, as we're going to see today. So Neva, I want to just get started, let you introduce yourself. What's your name? What's your brand? What's your mission? What are you all about?
Yeah, so Nivah Greening, like you said, and I was actually born in New Zealand, raised out here in Utah. Been in Utah now, Utah local for maybe about almost 20 years now. So kind of crazy to be able to think about how fast time flies. But kind of a little bit about me. So my biggest focus is, I guess it can all be wrapped up in significance. You know, I want to be able to create a difference. I want to be able to create and help others be able to create results. And so whether that was in the job world or whether that was in my own family with my incredible, beautiful wife, Savannah, and our amazing little boy, Ty, or even out on the side, being able to consult and advise different businesses. It's just been an amazing time, but my number one focus has always just been significance. You know, I love the saying, right? It doesn't matter how much money is my bank account. What matters is how many people are at my funeral, right? And so that's always been just my main focus, is being able to help people feel loved, feel important, and then being able to add value as much as possible, for sure.
Wow, that was like deep. I mean, it should be, but like I feel touched by that. That's the significance in that you're thinking that long term and your full impact. I mean, guys, you can already see we've got a great guest on today. So Neva, I mean, I'm so interested to hear what you're gonna say now. Cause anyway, and let's make sure not to just stop talking about that significance. I want to make sure we get back to that and talk about that throughout this.
Yeah.
But keeping with our topic today, you know, what do you do for recovery? And more specifically, what's the tone and the focus? How do you do that special recovery that you do?
Well, the biggest thing is I had to be able to figure out my why behind it, right? You know, we've all probably read the book, The Why by Simon Sinek, and, you know, all these different types of incredible thought leaders about finding out the whys. And so the biggest thing for me is, you know, I love the saying, a drowning man can't save another drowning man. And so if I wanted to be able to make an impact on other people, I had to first save myself. So I had to first recover from whatever healing that I needed personally before I could be able to go and maybe save and help someone else. And so that was a huge driver for me to allow myself to be like, hey, I got to take this seriously. You know, I think personally, and I think we live in the greatest country in the world, and it's very easy to be able to take things easy or kind of nonchalantly move through life. But I had to take it seriously, you know, the different struggles that I had and the different healing that I needed to be able to work through. So first of all, I had to just realize that was a serious thing. And another thing as well is that I was told once, and I have to keep reminding myself to not take personal growth so personally, right? It's just like if you were to go to a physician and maybe you broke your leg and he said, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to recover from this physical ailment, you wouldn't start questioning your self-worth. You wouldn't start asking yourself or saying to yourself, oh, woe is me, or I'm not worthy, or I suck. you're just going to say, hey, this is what the doctor ordered, so I got to do these necessary steps to be able to recover and heal.
Right.
So something I always got to remind myself when I'm trying to be able to heal or trying to be able to recover from, whatever, whether that's physical, mental, spiritual, that I'm kind of going through.
Sure.
And then where it's like the kind of like different steps. There was a lot of, I don't know, there's so many, different things that I've had to be able to work through, or different steps that I've taken, whether that was just my individual thought life, right? We always talk about manifesting, speaking things into existence. And so I had to be able to start with my thought life, being able to have personal affirmations, talking about things like I'm a champion, I'm a winner. There's nothing I can't do. Everyone's trying to uplift each other, right? I'm speaking these words into existence to be able to heal my own thought life from those negative type thoughts, or never underestimating the power of an outside voice. So having different mentors or coaches or relationships that have the results that I want, and having them be able to speak into me. Or maybe it's, again, not taking it so personal, going and getting therapy, going and seeing a professional in my past. So then that way I can be able to receive that help. Just because, again, we're not so good that we may not need all sorts of help. And so I don't know, those are just sometimes something to be able to at least list off initially.
No, those are all such deep, guys. I mean, I hope you caught all that. Go back and listen to it again.
I speak too fast. Mikey.
Oh, you started off so, I mean, you just went, guys, you can tell he could go for hours talking about this, because you can tell it's coming from personal experience, because he's really getting into not just that it happened, but his reflections on it and his growth from it. Because he's recognized now the patterns that, hey, we're going to go through things that are hard, and some of them are going to go deep.
Yeah.
And that deep recovery, it doesn't go away in a day. You got to take time to reflect, figure it out, come back to yourself and reflect and make sure that you're aligning. But I mean, so many deep things that we just heard. And I love that it's personal. So cool, Nivah. So I guess, I mean, besides, making sure that you're putting in good voices and things like that, and making sure that you're, coming back to self, what other forms, I mean, is there other things that you do, I mean, for recovery that, I mean, maybe are new that you haven't tried before, or something, maybe something that you found more effective?
Yeah. For me, I think, and of course, I believe it differs. But the problem, though, with a lot of people, and especially me, is that they don't give all sorts of different opportunities a chance. Right?
Yeah.
Like I can't be able to just say, "Oh, meditation's not going to work for me," before I actually try it. Or some sort of physical activity. For me, it's physical activity. Right? That's been huge, just for my mental life, and then also just emotional as well. Is being able to get out of our house. We live in a remote world. And it makes sense as to why so many people are struggling with, me included, with different types of anxiety or depression, different types of feelings that we receive, because there's less activity outside. And so physical activity is a big one for me.
Sure.
Being able to, it's not like really like specific meditation, or it's more so just like taking time to myself.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
People don't realize that it can be that simple. Just finding time for yourself, especially if you're an introvert, or if you're an extrovert, finding time to be around other people.
Yeah. And just being able to take that, again, seriously, for yourself. I always love the comparison, right? When our phone is about to die, we don't question if it deserves a charge, right?
Right.
Whereas for us, we're like, no, I don't need to be able to sleep, or I don't need to be able to drink water. I can be able to do it without it. I'm a beast, right? Which, I get the thought life, but sometimes we just need to realize that, hey, I think I need a break. Just like our phones need to be charged, or our laptops need to be charged. And so
I love how this has just become like a part of your life, where it's just so like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, so many people, they'll sit there and they'll go, no, I can't do that. Yeah. Instead of being like, no, like, your leg's broken, you go to the doctor now. Like, you're going to get it fixed. Like, they just don't get it, or for some reason, they feel like they themselves don't connect with that kind of recovery, or the meditation, or they haven't, hasn't worked for them, instead of just recognizing that it's like, no, like, for the kind of recovery that you need, like, that's just a solution. And it's really that simple sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it just goes back to, we're probably all learned about having a growth mindset, right? And how important that is. But just realizing that, hey, if it didn't work for you 5 years ago, it may work for you now. And that was just, for my wife and I, we just got so good at failing, so good at being able to, hey, it didn't work for us last year, it went for us 6 months. Let's just keep trying though, trying different ways of recovery, or trying different ways to be able to aid whatever we broke mentally, spiritually, physically, and then see if it helps this time, But
I love that phrase. We got so good at failing. I mean, guys, the only way you make progress in this life is by trying and failing. And so get really good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and I know you have a big topic that you talk about, where you're saying that how we have this ongoing battle every day and how we need to continually be recovering in order to kind of keep up with that. It's not just a one-time thing, it's a continual thing. Sounds like it's throughout the day even.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like there are many times, because there are just certain things in life that'll beat us down, whether that's checking social media, right? Even that alone can be able to beat ourselves down.
Absolutely.
Or maybe it's getting around negative association, right? Maybe it's certain coworkers or certain neighbors, or, all great people, but maybe just the vibes that they're throwing out can derail your positive outlook on your day. Sure. And so sometimes it needs those continual checks or check-ins with yourself to be able to say, how am I doing? How am I thinking? How's my thought life? How's my emotional life? And just double checking those. But I think it's just also your relationship, my relationship with needing help, right? Or whether that's, again, just me, my thought life, or physically or externally. But not being afraid of healing, not being afraid of gaining some sort of recovery. Where I think sometimes, a lot of times, I think people will go through some big traumatic type experiences and think it's a one and done. But again, like you said, I believe it's a continual fight, daily fight, weekly fight. And sometimes people can lose hope, but for my wife and I, we just realized that, hey, you can be able to lose hope, but you may be going through that same struggle again, or those same sort of feelings, but you're not the same person the last time you fought those feelings, right? You're a stronger, better version of yourself. So I don't think it gets easier, but you get stronger, I guess, in a way.
Well, and guys, I think I hope you're picking up on also this kind of background tone that Nivah often, when he talks about himself, he also talks about, he says, me and my wife, they're a unit. And so I think you guys, it sounds like you're really learning a lot from her. Is there maybe some recovery that your wife does maybe better than even you do?
Yeah, she's very devoted to a morning routine. I have a morning routine, but mine's different. Mine's like I wake up, I go play basketball before I start my work day, and shower and all that kind of stuff. She does a lot of like morning devotionals, where she'll wake up and meditate in maybe 20-30 minutes or whatever that might look like, depending on baby. Wow. Of course, now it depends on baby's alarm clock.
Sure.
But she'll have her meditation time, and then she'll read more spiritual literature like scriptures or maybe conference talks to be able to get her right in that way, just to be able to even start off her day, right? And she's found that's helped her a lot, to be able to just really focus and really prep for the day.
Sure. Well, and I love that, you guys have your individual things, because again, your whole big thing is that you need to understand the why behind the recovery. And so depending on what you're going through in life, how you're growing, or what different kind of, whether it's physical muscles and like mental, emotional, spiritual, you need to recover in different ways. And the other thing is, frankly, if you guys have tried meditating for 30 minutes is not easy. That can be considered recovery for sure. But I would also consider that working some very serious muscles, whether it's emotional or mental, that meditation, like that's growth, guys. Somebody who gets to 30 minutes, that means they're a serious player. And so I love that. I also love the idea of having a morning, going and playing basketball. My little brother is very competitive, and I've found that I lack a lot of that competitive gene. And so I always, every morning, I try and do some sort of, I call it my morning competition, to try and be more like my brother, because I realize when I'm competitive, it brings out more effort in me, and it brings out that better side, that better performance.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool that you have that morning routine that kind of gets you, it gets you moving, it gets you competitive, because you're going out to crush it for the day.
Yeah. Well, and I always kind of think about, because like everyone wants to win, right? And it feels good winning. And you can get in the habit of winning or you can get in the habit of losing, right? They're both just habitual. It's not good or bad. It just depends on the result you want. And so like for me, I had to get those wins in early. I can't just lose the entire day and then just flip a switch and I'm going to win, right? I've got to get in the habit. So, I'm sure we've heard the reference about the most important thing you can do in the morning is make your bed, right? So in that way you can be able to get a quick win in. And so like I need those wins. Like even if I lose at basketball, like I won because I got up at 6 a.m. or I got up at 5:30 to go and play. And that does a lot for my mental health and emotional.
Well, and just getting your mindset right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and guys, you might notice, in the morning, most people wake up and that's when your brain is in this state where it goes, your cortisol levels are really high. You don't know what's around you because you've been asleep for hours. And so you kind of have this fear level come up. If you can just get up and sweat, go and play basketball, whatever it is, get up, get a quick win in, your body just immediately goes, oh, no, we're fine. Because not only are you now getting rid of the cortisol, you're pumping your dopamine. And so Nivah's got some secrets down there. He's telling you the off top stuff, but it's a golden morning when you can do something like that.
Yeah. Well, and then so many times, right? And I think sometimes we have this skewed picture that we're going to wake up super excited, like
I wish.
So excited to climb out of your warm bed to go walk out in the snow and then scrape off the ice off your windshield, but hey, there's many times where I'm regretting or I'm negative or I have these negative thoughts and feelings. And once I get in the car and I'm driving, it's like I totally forgot I was tired.
Sure.
Or then once I get there and I'm playing, it's like I don't even remember those feelings or thoughts that I had to keep me in bed.
My goodness. Well, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that kind of the thing you were saying at the beginning. The first thing was you were saying you need to understand your why. And the other thing was that you want to be significant. And I think so many people are driven by that one thing. It's a human need. You have to be significant somehow. And if you take the Gallup strength test, the Clifton strength test, significance is it's one of my top ones. I want to be significant. I want to hang around people who I see as significant. It really just means you want to be hanging around people that you see that are making the changes that you want to see.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of dive into that because the thing is, I know that came from going through some hard stuff.
For sure.
And so is there any stories you have, Nivah, that kind of go into, maybe a time where you had a breakdown or something where you weren't recovering, you weren't keeping sight of, or you felt like you weren't significant and you didn't know your why and you had to do some real recovery to kind of come back from that?
Yeah, I would say, man, there's so many different times, but I would say kind of the stem of that significance is, growing up, especially in the kind of just Polynesian culture, like a lot of times, and it's not from what was said, some people would say it, but it was also from what was seen, that like, especially throughout middle school and high school, it's kind of like a lot of different of my friends were, and us were very, very athletic. But then
absolutely, guys, you should have. I've known Nivah a long time. I knew him in high school. This guy, we had choir together. I don't know how we were both there. We both just have our beautiful singing voices. But the thing was, guys, he would show up to choir, and I remember he'd eat like 2 sandwiches in choir besides his lunch, and he was just so. Athletic's a good word. Let's go with that. He looked awesome.
So and the kind of stigma was that like that's all I guess maybe a lot of our friends were known for was just athletics.
It was a big characteristic.
Yeah. Whereas like a lot of times it wasn't known as those that are getting really good grades, or there were a lot of different friends or even family members that would go and get scholarships to collegiates type places and then lose their scholarship because they had broken certain rules of the school. And it was almost like that was the like expectation, is that only being good in sports, and that was it. And so I wanted to be able to always break that mold. And so there were many times growing up where I would break down, feeling that lack of importance or feeling that lack of significance, or getting put in a box to where, you know, you're only meant to be able to do one thing, and that's kind of it. Or the only way you're going to be able to make money or be successful is only if you play sports. You know, just these different types of labels that sometimes people might have, or different labels that we have. And so a lot of that significance came from that breakdown. And a lot of times it wasn't spoken about, which I think that's a big reason why a lot of breakdown happens, a lot of recovery
Sure.
avoided, is because either we don't know how to be able to work through it, so we don't bring it up, or we think that we're the only ones going through it. Or is when you start talking out loud to different, you know, voices to be able to help you, you start realizing you're not so special, that no one else has experienced the same struggle as you. But yeah, that's kind of where it stemmed from, is those feelings. And again, I don't think anyone directly said it to me, which shows how strong that those feelings and those doubts and those fears can be, if not worked on. But then that was just my drive from then on, you know, to be able to make sure that, you know, I wasn't, again, a lot of times defining myself. And I think that was a big stem, was I was defining myself from, again, I don't think even what people told me, but what I'd seen and kind of visioned and kind of labeling myself. And so, yeah, a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of work. You know, whenever I'm talking with different people, I always just say, hey, I didn't, you know, my wife and I weren't anything special. We just worked really hard at being able to work through our different struggles that most people sometimes avoid.
I just think it's so, I mean, thanks for being real. I mean, you know, it's like so many people, I think the highest performers are the ones who actually recognize the reality that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, more than that, like you said, you defined yourself. I mean, you're growing up with these expectations and these labels, and not just that, there's no real communication going on. It's no one's speaking about it. No one's really talking about how that's the expectation, and how, you know, if you do something different, how you might feel like you are being put in that box.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I mean, guys, being young and having those kind of expectations, and not just that, but it's a full culture around you where everybody's that way. And they're kind of all telling you, this is what's important, not so much this stuff. This is what gives you value, but still being willing to define yourself regardless of other people's opinions. That's a sign of a strong spirit. But the other thing is, it puts a lot of weight on that spirit, and it takes a lot of spiritual recovery to keep coming back day in and day out and realign and say, no, that's who I am, you know, and I find value in that. And that's one thing that I just find amazing about Nivah and about so many other high performers is people think they're crazy. I mean, people look at us and they just go like, why are you doing that? Or like, you know, why would you want to do that? But to us, it makes sense because you're following your path. And the thing that happens is, because of all that weight put on your spirit, that you keep coming back and redefining yourself, you get this superpower that is, you have this self-image and self-identity that is rock solid. And it makes for high performers like Nivah. So, I mean, tough stuff, but what a result. I mean, like you said, you're on your way to creating this amazing future. Guys, he's one of the hardest workers out there. But the thing is that he knows who he is. And more than that, that helps you know your why, like he was saying. And it helps you know how you perceive your significance. So now you're able to live this fulfilling life where you're totally living around your why and providing that significance to the world. I mean, he's so aligned. So anyway, didn't mean to take over there, but I'm just kind of geeking out. I love the mentality here, and just, you know, your mission is so clear.
Well, and I think you touched on something that's so important, especially for, you know, for my wife and I in our family unit, and just some people in general, is alignment. And I think too many times people don't identify what their values are, what their most important things are, what their non-negotiables are, to where it's like, hey, these are my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. one will always beat two, two will always beat three. Like they have to be ranked. And I think that most, people that have created success, or in my opinion, like true joy, that I've seen in people is that they live a life aligned with their values. It may not look like it's successful to other people, but to them, they're filled with most joy because they know that they're living their true self. They're living their true journey, their true.
Well, and prioritizing those doesn't happen overnight either, guys.
Oh, yeah.
It comes through the failing and realizing what actually is more important to you. Self-reflection, recognizing what you actually put your time into. If it's on your calendar, it's probably one of your higher priorities.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure, right? At least for me, right? I'm sure there was at one point where, girls and burgers are my priorities,
As they should have been.
Or maybe it was having the nice car, because everyone was getting their cars at 16 or 17 or whatever. But I think it's through the failing again. It's just so important. And then you realize, oh, it's not actually my most important value. What is, right?
Well, and what actually brings you that significance? Is it the car? Because if the car brings your significance, guys, we got to have a chat. Like so many people, they start to lean on possessions or status, or let's be real, fake appearances. I mean, social media has just gone crazy with that, but we can help you recover. Nivah, I want to ask you, do you know how old you were when you maybe started using recovery, whether or not you noticed it? Is there a time? I mean, I would assume it'd probably be with sports initially, but it could have been other stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure sports are for like the physical recovery, or maybe it's like a parent that says, "Oh, all you got to do is drink more water," and then you're like, I don't know. But I think I'll probably say just like growing up, maybe my younger years of my childhood.
Nice.
Probably maybe like even like maybe like in like a young men's scenario of having some sort of like young men's leader, being able to at least just be there. And for whatever reason, I chose to be able to express certain feelings or struggles. And then that feeling of being heard, because again,
huge,
that feeling of being heard and felt a feeling of importance. And of course, my parents are always there to be able to help me in different things like that. But you kind of expect it growing up.
Sure.
You're like, well, you're my parents, so you're supposed to do that for me. But when I started seeing other people caring, I think that's where a lot of healing came, or a lot of emotional healing or recovery came, was from having other people speaking to me and actually show they cared. And
I would expect that, because that's really around the time that you're actually getting into sports, which is such a big part of your community. And when all that pressure is starting to come on, and you're starting to have these questions of, is this me? Is this not me?
Yeah.
Guys, talking to somebody, especially a trusted leader, is a huge form of recovery. If you want to know what kind of recovery, it can be a couple different ones, because normally people would say, oh, maybe it's emotional because I'm talking about my emotions. And if you are talking about your emotions, you'd be right. If you're talking about your self-identity, though, that's a form of more spiritual recovery, which I'm finding is a theme of this one, which I am loving, because we haven't really gotten deep down into spiritual recovery. A lot of people are talking about their self-identity, but it's been going a lot deeper. So I like that. Finding a trusted adult, some sort of advisor that you can open up to.
Yeah. Well, and typically, right, it's those that have struggled with the exact same things, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes, because again, everyone has advice, but you also got to be very picky in regards to who you share that with, or who can actually be able to give you that advice that might be able to actually help. But then again, you won't know until you try. So,
well, and guys, Neva was talking about mentors. He has mentors that are doing stuff that he wants to be doing. Your network is the environment that you choose to plant yourself in. And it is just like, if you can find people who have been through similar things, or they've accomplished the things that you want to accomplish, that means you're hanging around the right people. And it's a choice, and you've got to make it, because the sooner you do, the more you're going to realize, oh, this is my tribe. They can help me deal with what I've been through. They can help me get to where I'm going. Huge to select the people you're going to be hanging around.
Yeah. And I think that was like kind of the struggles of breaking the labels, right? Is that sometimes we can
so hard.
Yeah. And sometimes we can be able to see that and say, oh, I don't want to be a teacher's pet, or I don't want to be seen as trying to be able to be like them, or different things like that. But again, it's kind of like priorities. It's kind of like, well, if this is going to help me have a better marriage, or be a better father, or be able to help me achieve the goals that I want, then maybe those should be the people that I want to be around. So then that way they can be able to help me, right? Or at least I can hold myself to a higher standard, or whatever that might look like.
Sure. Well, and can I ask you, was there somebody or something that really changed your perspective? Because you were trying to get rid of that label and to be something different. What was it that made you want to be different?
I think it was just I didn't like the result that I had seen others be able to have, right? So it's like, well, I don't want that result, so I'm going to try and do things different than they did, so I don't get the same result. But then also it was seeing other people like my parents and maybe my brother and his wife, and just different family members or different people that were close to where I could be able to realize that I couldn't make up any excuses.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a trap for sure, is being like, well, I was born this way, so I'm going to stay this way. But when I saw people who were born just like me and had the same life experiences changing the narrative and being able to create success and breaking that label, it caused me to have that hope, which then started that journey of creating a why, because now I know it's even possible. And then, of course, putting in a lot of work on myself, and just in general, to be able to then achieve those successes. So yeah, family, friends, just close associates that I knew had similar upbringings. And then being able to put in the work to create those.
Guys, I'm coming up with a new term here. I'm going to call it generational recovery. And I don't think that it's bad to, diss on, you shouldn't be dissing on anyone's culture, especially your own and your heritage. But I think that there are some things that in every culture could be improved. And I think that I am so happy that Nivah is doing this, because guys, my dad, he grew up in a family where it was less ideal, and he saw where it was going, and he saw the direction that he would have been going if he had followed it. And he chose to pivot. He chose to make the change and to be the one to take all that pressure, but to, get rid of the labels. And it's changed my life. And so Nivah is being a trendsetter for generations, and he's changing that. And I'm sure that, and I don't even want, I would say we should get more specific, but there's no need, like, to the things that you saw that you said, I see the result that they got, and that specific result is something that's unattractive to me. Because honestly, guys, you don't need to know the specifics. You just need to know, just kind of the psychology behind it. Once you understand that, look in your life, recognize the things that you don't want to pass on to the next generation, and help your generation, help your family line recover from that. Because that's huge. So anyway, Nivah, that's awesome. Did you have another thought, or do you want to move on?
That's good.
Okay, awesome. Next thing I wanted to ask you is, you said that you do some sort of meditation. Most people don't even meditate. They just do some sort of a mindfulness practice, whether it's just the thinking positively, whether it's visualizing. What kind of mindfulness practice or meditation do you do specifically?
For me, it's just, well, a lot of it stems from my mission, because, hey, you're with your companion a long time, and you kind of just run out of things to talk about.
So where are you on your mission again?
South Africa, Cape Town.
So scary.
It was scary.
Cape Town is like, anyway, guys, you'd be happy to have some muscles if you're hanging out there all day.
Yeah, a few people were injured and whatnot and jumped and all.
Some wonderful people, though. Absolutely wonderful people down there.
And just beautiful country for sure.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's just it took me out of whatever association that I was in, and it kind of put me into this awesome training ground.
Yeah.
Where I could be able to start creating my own values, creating my own thoughts, because I no longer had these outside thoughts. I could be able to think on myself.
Right.
And there's a lot of quiet time, a lot of silence sometimes. When it was just maybe me and my companion, or just at late at night, just being able to just think, and not having outside voices trying to tell me what to think, but I could think for myself finally.
Wow.
A lot of it stemmed from there. and just being, for me, it's like I've gotten really good at any negative thought that I can be able to have. I'm sure I've heard it before, but I'm sure it's some sort of training they do in therapy or whatever. But it's kind of like whenever a negative thought comes in my head, I'll then think of it as it's like getting formed into a little baseball, and then I'll then knock it out of the park as a home run. And then it's gone in my mind, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'll do that for like any thought that comes, so that I'm literally thinking about nothing. Like it's almost like I picture like an all white empty room, and it's just all white and there's nothing in there.
Yeah.
Because our minds are generating hundreds, not thousands of thoughts a day, and so sometimes it needs it just needs to chill. And so a lot of that is for me. It's just being able to just chill, being able to not utilize that minimal mental bandwidth. We're not superheroes. We don't have unlimited amounts of bandwidth on a daily basis. So I needed to be able to, I needed to be able to kind of just push pause and then wait to use those certain energies on whatever I was trying to be able to accomplish. So that's kind of, for me, is just being able to just slow down and just chill,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people who try meditation, they run into that exact same problem. Thoughts keep coming to their mind and they just don't know how to get rid of them. Visualizing, putting them, making them into a baseball and hitting them, getting them away from there. That is such a great practice.
Yeah.
I think I've also heard of people doing it with emotions. Because thoughts, especially for meditation, absolutely. I think it was Donny Osmond, if I remember right. Randomly in his career, he started getting like really anxious on stage. And his therapist or whoever told him, they were like, what I want you to do is be really playful with your emotions. I want you to just, almost feel like you just pull your emotion out, that anxiety, put it in a little ball, throw it up in the corner, of the room, whatever, and then be really playful and just be like, hey, I got to go out and perform right now. I'll come back later. And we can talk then. But until then, I'm going out here. And he was totally fine. And it's just like really learning how to, different practices like that, where you can actually just say, no, we're going to send it away. No, we're going to send it away. Huge thing. Because you can now go into places where you need to focus and you can say, I'm going to get rid of that thought because I've practiced this. I'm outside of my comfort zone. Doesn't matter. I'm just telling my emotions we're locked in right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it's being able to control yourself, because thoughts are going to come regardless. Emotions are going to come regardless. But do you control you? That's kind of something I have to keep telling myself and asking myself. I love the saying, right? Emotions are indicators, not dictators. So it's an indicator that, hey, something's wrong, but it shouldn't control you. Like, hey, if you're angry, that doesn't mean you go and be a mad person or go and be an angry person. It just says, hey, there's something wrong here. Why am I angry, or why am I sad? Why am I mad? Whatever that might look like.
Absolutely.
And that was really important for emotional healing, or for emotional recovery, is realizing, hey, there's no shame there. It's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you suck that you're having these emotions. They're just indicators that, hey, something's wrong. Let's fix it. Right.
I love that. That's a chapter in a book somewhere. They're indicators, not dictators.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And did you find that reading in a book?
I'm sure. I've read so many books that I'm sure it's just thoughts just keep floating around from different books, or maybe it's different audios, or just being able to learn from different relationships that have created success.
Sure.
I don't know, I just feel like I associate with them so much, whether from reading or listening or around, that it just comes up,
That tends to be a thing. We've had book recommendations on every podcast so far. Just everybody's a reader now. All the successful people read. I wonder why. Is there a specific book that has, transformed your life, or that you would recommend?
Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. Amazing for the emotional type healing, and just kind of discovering, why you thought the way you did when you were younger, and kind of navigating that. I'm a huge advocate for John C. Maxwell books. I'm a big fan of them. Thinking for a Change, or 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, or just so many different incredible books that he's written.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
There's so many. No, those are awesome suggestions. I love that. I like putting out a couple in case people are really wanting to learn how you got to where you are. Well,
it's kind of like imagine if you hung out with those authors every single day. Like imagine how you would think, you would feel. So it's like, hey, you can't hang out with them every day, but you can associate with their words via their books. So it's like, hey, why not?
And I've been so happy that some of these successful people have made like podcasts or their own show, because like there's no way on earth I could get access to some of these people and their minds. And yet you get to like see them just like tell you everything, and you're like hanging out with them. But their books, guys, their books, that's their super refined thoughts.
Yeah.
You really want to get to know them deep down. That's the way. And reading is good for your mind anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's a question, Nivah, because I think I have this hunch that preparation, the more we prepare for things, the less strenuous the activities are, and hence we need less recovery.
Yeah.
Is there any special preparations that you do in your life? I mean, you've got a wife and a kid. I think you guys are usually prepared. You got the diaper bag ready to go. But it's like, is there any special preparation that you found more useful in your life?
So time blocking is so important.
And how do you do that?
So, well, first off, I'm very ambitiously lazy, right? I'll do everything I need to, so then that way I have more time to be lazy, right?
Nice.
And so, if I don't have certain things scheduled, so my wife and I, there was a season where we would do weekly planning sessions, like every Sunday night, where we would map out our week, map out what we're going to be doing at different events or different activities with family or activities or date night with each other. We would make sure that those were planned and time blocked in our calendars that we shared access to. That way there's no confusion. That way there's communication between my wife and I.
Love it.
There was a season where we did those. Now it's more so daily. We probably should get back to it, right? We're not perfect. We probably should get back to those different weeklies.
There was some benefit in there.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just making sure that we're just mapping out our day, going into our calendar, blocking out time for certain activities or certain errands that we need to be able to run, and then just following it. Because I think I get more exhausted trying to figure out what to do versus just going and doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's kind of like you and your friends, you're like, oh man, what should we do tonight? And then you just sit there for like 3 hours doing it.
Everybody's nodding their heads right now, like
trying to figure out what to do. Whereas, man, if someone just came in with a plan with just like blocked out activities, then everyone would go and have a blast, and it would require the least amount of emotional bandwidth, because you're not trying to fight yourself. Or if you have something planned, you're more likely to be able to follow through with it, instead of fighting yourself and being like, oh, do I really want to go and do that? No, I don't want to. Pros and cons, gas. You're just fighting with yourself emotionally and mentally that you could have avoided and not needed to be able to, have that strenuous activity of trying to force yourself to do something.
Sure.
So I'd say, yeah, time blocking has been huge. So then that way we're not battling with ourselves. Like we're already battling with ourselves to go out and, fight the world and everything. We don't need to fight ourselves on top of that.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing. It's just time blocking our days to make sure that we're organized. Cleaning our room, like that is so big. Making sure that our room is clean, our kitchen's dishes are done, just different things like that. That's
nice. Making sure you're taking care of the little things.
Yeah,
it's a lifestyle.
I mean, again, you're fighting a war outside. What you don't want to do is ruin your home court advantage. Right?
Well, and to be honest, if you have a lot of stuff just laying around, you just feel like you have so much more to do. Yeah. And suddenly you feel stressed out, even though there's nothing really more that got added to your plate.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure we've heard the thought that like you can't think about two things at once, right? 100%. And so a lot of times we have like two things on our errand list, but since we can't think about both of them at the same time, it's like, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, or I have to do this, I have to do this. It's like only two things.
Right.
Mine just like can't.
What is it? I think Robin Sharma calls it hyper frontal mentality or something like that. Where it's just like, you would just I'm here, and you get it done.
Yeah. And so like we had to write down things. I mean, you figure out our jobs are really good at checking off lists. Like, why not make a list for our life? You know, like
Sure.
we're so um
Nice.
we just get so much done at our jobs. So it's like, you know, why not add some of those best practices into your own life? So we write things down and
I love that. So many people are like, oh, I need to have a life that brings all of the benefit things into my work, instead of being like, what am I getting from my work that's actually making my life better? How can I implement that over here? Especially nowadays. I mean, especially if you're in tech. I mean, every business, but tech is amazing. And they have some of the best practices out there. They're so organized, because otherwise it wouldn't work. But I mean, why not bring that into your personal life? I love that. Well, let me ask you, Nivah, really quick. I want to know, kind of, because everybody seems to have some big lesson that they're learning in life right now. What's maybe a big lesson that's kind of showing up in your life that you're just like, that's true, and that's something that you're learning?
I would say biggest one right now is the need for gratitude.
Need for
Like
gratitude.
Yeah, like gratitude is just such an important and healing emotion to be able to have. And having that at the forefront of my mind is so important because, again, you know, as you experience life and continual hardships come, it's very easy to be able to get negative. It's very easy to be able to have those doubts and fears come back. But just being able to continually have that attitude of gratitude, right? To where you're continually thankful for at least the things that you do have. And for my wife and I being people of faith, like, you know, for my belief is, right, God or universe, whatever people believe in, if you aren't grateful for what you do have, like, why would you be blessed with more, right? And so we had to be able to accept and be grateful for what we did have. And we knew that we would be able to then receive more on top of whatever we did have. So, yeah.
Well, and it changes your perspective so much.
Yeah.
You're suddenly like looking at all this abundance instead of like all the lack of the things or the goals you haven't hit yet. And just that kind of unsatisfied, but like negative unsatisfied mentality.
Yeah.
Gratitude, guys, if you, I mean, try it out, write out, I mean, get a list, write out 10 things just every morning that you're grateful for, and try to make it different things that are really affecting you that day. Your life will transform. Brad Lee, if you guys know Brad Lee, the real Brad Lee, he talks about, he's like, I want you to go pray every night and say, you know, imagine that everything that you said thank you for, that you were grateful for that night, is what you would have the next morning. And it's just like, that'd be a long prayer. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to lose, but it makes you recognize you have so much in your life and you are so blessed.
Yeah. Well, and again, right, it's just keeping that habit, right? Because, you know,
that's the hard part, huh?
Yeah, like keeping in that or staying in that habit of being grateful. You know, it's kind of like people typically only pray or ask for help when they're in signs of trouble, but very rarely do they do those same exact things when things are going well. And so,
well, and it's an easy practice, and sometimes the easy ones seem simple, and so you're like, do they really carry that much weight? This one does.
Yeah. And again, you're going back to like healing and recovery, and it's just so important to have that grateful heart. So then we're not so focused on the negative things that are going on, because I mean, it's too easy to find negative things that are going on, you know, in the world, in our lives, in our jobs, you know, whatever that might look like. But if we just focus on the good things and be grateful and not see them as negative, but just see them as different opportunities to grow, it's just a total different outlook on life. But
rather than focusing on the stress, you're focusing on the progress or the recovery that you're making.
Yeah.
That's actually helping you go forward, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Making sure it's positive, not negative. I love that. Well, and Nivah, I mean, we could go on for hours, because this is, guys, we're going to have Nivah back. Hopefully when I've got like a real studio, but guys, this is, and again, if you guys are looking for consulting or anything, we have his links below. Go check him out on LinkedIn. He's a real professional. He works in tech. He's a great guy. You can already tell he's got his life together. But I want to ask you, Nivah, because kind of a last question. If everybody in the world was going to see this podcast, what would your message to the world be? What would you want them to hear?
I would say kind of the takeaway message that I would hope everyone would be able to just finally believe is that you can only control you. right? You can't control other people. You can't control what else is going on in the world. You can only control you. And the biggest thing for my wife and I is that we needed to make sure that our own house was in accordance to whatever our values we wanted before trying to be able to figure out what was going on in other houses or the White House or other politics, different things like that. Like I wasn't going to help anyone while I was drowning, right? And so I had to be able to just make sure that I was in a great place, that I was working on me. And once I was able to be able to overcome that and be able to get in the place where I could be able to then add value, then that's where the difference comes. And so, yeah, just understand that only you can control you, and you have everything that it takes to be able to create an incredible life and be able to improve in different areas. It takes a lot of hard work, but we all have incredible tools to be able to do it. So that's it.
I love that. That is such a huge message, guys. It's true. I mean, you can only control you, but it's not a bad thing. Sometimes it actually helps a lot to understand that. I mean, there were some Navy SEALs. I was learning the same lesson. They were saying, they're like, you can only control what's in your 3-foot world. And that either means, in your head or what you can quickly grab. And like, that's it. But the thing is, there's a simplicity in that is amazing, because it gets you to become proactive, to actually take charge and ownership of yourself and what you're doing, and recognize that all of your results are based on you. And that's where it starts. And it goes back to the very beginning when Nivah said, you got to know your why, and you got to try and be significant and recognize what significance do you bring, and that you have ownership over that. And your why is going to fuel you to change the world.
Love it.
Huge. Thank you, Nivah. Guys, we're going to have him back. Don't go away. Give the show a rating. Go find Nivah. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, man.